Well, it wasn't a good weekend for the news media. Every single night, the 6 p.m. bulletins deliberately, in my view, deceive the viewers. They think you're an idiot and will fall for anything. The real question is, will you? So in 2020, just over half of us trusted the news in general. Last year, it's this year, latest data, beginning of this year, that figure was down to just 33%. In 5 years, general trust in the news has fallen 20 percentage points. Just 1 in 3 New Zealanders trust the news media. And a new survey reported last month revealed 60% of the New Zealand survey participants reported they sometimes, often or almost always avoided the news. If you add in the rarely avoid it, then it's 81% of us avoid the news to some extent. It's the highest rate, or one of the highest rates in the world. The problem for the news media is that they completely and utterly deserve this low rating. So if you still trust the media, you're in a shrinking minority of New Zealanders. But the coverage of the US presidential election has not been reporting, in my view. It has been propagandising. Over the weekend, just gone, we had examples of it every night. Shocking examples, which I will show you. But let me remind you, firstly, of a couple of weeks ago. And this was the report on Newstalk ZB. You can just about hear the sarcasm dripping in the voice.
Donald Trump has stopped taking questions at his latest town hall in Pennsylvania and swayed on stage to music for 39 minutes, also telling supporters to vote for him in January, despite the election being in 3 weeks.
Ah, lovely. So the written version said this: Trump's impromptu dance performance at Pennsylvania Town Hall raises questions and mockery. New Zealand Herald: Kamala Harris mocks Donald Trump after rally turns into bizarre dance-a-thon. And then the other government-funded Channel 1 News, Trump Hall, this is Radio New Zealand, Trump Hall town event. Kamala mocks Donald Trump after rally turns into bizarre dance-a-thon. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? New Zealand Herald and Radio New Zealand had the same coverage. Well, that's nice. And then One News, they say, let's just listen to the music. And here was their 6 p.m. news bulletin coverage.
Presidential rivals traded barbs in another day on the campaign trail, with Kamala Harris appearing to question Donald Trump's mental health after this.
Oh, YMCA.
The Republican candidate ending a rally by grooving on stage for more than 30 minutes to songs like YMCA and Nothing Compares to You.
Oh, yeah, shock horror. Donald Trump on Stuff, they said Donald Trump ends campaign event with 40-minute dance-a-thon and 3 News' coverage.
Just 3 weeks to go until the US election, Donald Trump's made an unusual move on the campaign trail, turning a rally in Pennsylvania into a 40-minute dance routine. It prompted his Democratic rival Kamala Harris to ask on social media if he was okay. ITV's Dan Rivers has more.
Yeah, okay. Even the Waikato Times, they said Donald Trump sways and dances to music for 39 minutes at bizarre campaign rally. But what actually happened? Well, even some US media sources that don't like Trump at all couldn't avoid the truth. One that has no time for Trump and will definitely not paint him in a good light is ABC in the USA. Remember, this is the network that hosted that farcical debate between Trump and Kamala, where the moderators just couldn't hide their bias. Now, just before I show you ABC's coverage, let me just show you a little glimpse of what actually happened.
Hold it, please. A doctor, please. Doctor, thank you very much. Look at the
This is halfway through the Q&A.
We have. It's incredible when you think, right? These people, first responders. Our first responders are amazing, the way they can do things so beautifully and quickly. We have incredible people. They come here hours before, and it's a little hot, and So
Okay, so you can see that the meeting, the campaign rally, was interrupted. And it wasn't just once, it was twice. So let's go to ABC's coverage. Remember, they don't like Trump.
30 minutes in, 2 attendees suffered medical emergencies.
a doctor, please. Doctor.
The incidents shifted the mood, prompting Trump to cut the question short and instead play some of his favorite music.
How about this? We'll play YMCA and we'll go home.
Trump kept DJing, and most of his supporters stayed for another 30 minutes of his playlist.
Wow.
Well, in certain quarters of social media, people had a field day with that, and I guess on the screens it might have looked quite strange. Inside that hall, however, people were having a good time. What can I tell you? It did not seem out of the ordinary. It seemed almost intimate, and at the end, Trump did something he very rarely does. He came down off the stage and mingled with his supporters. He was signing autographs and shaking hands and the like.
Yeah, so Trump showed some humanity by halting a political rally so that sick people could be tended to. Twice. And then turned it into a fun event of music and signing Trump caps. But the media mockers pounced on it, including all the New Zealand media, and totally tried to fool you. Now, just last week, Jeff Bezos, the owner of the once prestigious Washington Post, called out the media trust issue in an opinion piece entitled "The Hard Truth, Americans Don't Trust the News Media," a note from the owner. And he said, most people believe the media is biased. Anyone who doesn't see this is paying scant attention to reality, and those who fight reality lose. It's an undefeated champion. It would be easy to blame others for our long and continuing fall in credibility and therefore decline in impact, but a victim mentality will not help. Complaining is not a strategy. We must work harder to control what we can control to increase our credibility. Well, did they take the hint? Well, what happened over the weekend? It will shock, it'll dismay, and hopefully it'll disgust you, because if it doesn't force you to question anything you see or watch or read in the news media now, then I don't think anything will. So Friday night on One News, 6 p.m. news, reporter Jack Tame grossly misrepresented former President Donald Trump's comments. Now, let's watch Trump's comments, where he clearly says he would protect Americans and women from illegal immigrants who are killing innocent people, including many women, whether the women like it or not. Now, he could have been referring to Kamala and others who want to allow open borders and don't want him to close the borders and protect women. But note the full context of his comments. And also note, abortion has nothing to do with it. In fact, I've read his complete speech. He never once mentioned abortion or reproductive rights. So this is what he actually said.
Kamala has imported criminal migrants from prisons and jails, from insane asylums and mental institutions all over the world, from Venezuela to the Congo, including savage criminals who assault, rape, and murder our women and girls. Anyone who would let monsters kidnap and kill our children does not belong anywhere near the Oval Office. And my people told me about 4 weeks ago, I was saying, no, I want to protect the people. I want to protect the women of our country. I want to protect the women. Sir, please don't say that. Why? They said, we think it's very inappropriate for you to say. So why? I'm president. I want to protect the women of our country. They said. They said, sir, I just think it's inappropriate for you to say, pay these guys a lot of money. Can you believe it? I said, well, I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to protect them. I'm going to protect them from migrants coming in. I'm going to protect them from foreign countries that want to hit us with missiles and lots of other things. Remember.
Okay, so that's it in context. Now, let's watch the One News coverage. And note when the speech coverage is stopped.
There's a 16-point difference between the respective candidates. Men and women want to be the next president, with women more likely to back Kamala Harris and men Donald Trump.
I want to protect the women of our country, they said. They said, sir, I just think it's inappropriate for you to say. I said, well, I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to protect them.
After Trump's comments around reproductive rights in Wisconsin last night, Kamala Harris was quick to pounce.
See what happened there? After Donald Trump's comments around reproductive rights. He wasn't talking about reproductive rights, Jack. And they deliberately cut it off so that it wasn't in context. Trump's comments were not about reproductive rights, end of. But that's the narrative being pushed by the mainstream media. As soon as Trump says women, the narrative is immediately abortion. Ironically, those same people can't define what a woman is. Now, what about 3 News coverage? Was it any better?
Harris is also courting women in both parties, with a message centred on freedom and reproductive rights, criticising Donald Trump for saying he would protect women whether they like it or not.
They said, sir, I just think it's inappropriate for you to say, pay these guys a lot of money. Can you believe it? I said, well, I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to protect them. I'm going to protect them from migrants coming in.
Oh, okay, so at least it's an improvement. They included that little bit afterwards, although watch what is next here.
Is using Donald Trump's comments as a rallying cry. She said that the former president doesn't understand women's rights and ability to make decisions about their own lives and their own bodies.
Yeah, but it wasn't about their own bodies. Anyway, facts don't matter. Now, so they included the short qualifying statement, but then immediately pivot to the abortion issue. But this image shows Jocelyn Nungarai, Laken Riley, Molly Tibbetts, Rachel Morin, there's another young girl there, all raped and killed by illegal criminals. Trump is simply saying he wants to protect women and girls like this from violent crime and attacks from foreign nations. So that was Friday night. Saturday, oh well, I could have predicted this one was coming. On Saturday morning, the headlines all screamed about Trump's comments that Liz Cheney should be fired upon with guns. I mean, shocking comments if he made them. Here's stuff. Donald Trump suggests war hawk Liz Cheney should have guns trained on her face. Taxpayer-funded Radio New Zealand. Trump suggests Liz Cheney should face firing squad for her foreign policy stance. So, as with any coverage of Trump by the media, I went and found the actual clip to get the full context. Now, have a watch. Trump's effectively saying, look, when Liz Cheney, the Wyoming Republican, was in House Republican leadership, she always wanted to go to war. She was a war hawk. And he's saying, let's see how she likes war if you give her a rifle and she's got 9 barrels shooting back at her. And he says they're all war hawks while they're sitting in Washington saying, let's send 10,000 troops to fight the enemy. So here's the actual clip.
Cheney was so, he said, I really want to thank you. He said, now I'm so glad that I actually endorsed you. It's amazing, but that you would do this. And I didn't speak to him about it. But then, go a couple of years forward or go now. And I don't blame him for sticking with his daughter. But his daughter is a very dumb individual, very dumb. She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. When the guns are trained on her face. They're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy. But she's a stupid person. And I used to I'd have meetings with a lot of people, and she always wanted to go to war with people.
Okay, so that's the context. Let's watch 3 News' coverage and watch when they cut the coverage.
The Attorney General of Arizona says her office is looking into whether comments by Donald Trump about training guns on Liz Cheney are a death threat under state law. Cheney, a former congresswoman and the daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney, is one of the highest profile Republicans to endorse Kamala Harris, even joining her on the campaign trail. ITV's Robert Moore reports.
You're working hard. I've been watching you.
Donald Trump has today been campaigning in the heart of the Arab American community of Dearborn in Michigan, trying to peel away a constituency normally democratic in its loyalties, but now alienated by the Gaza war. But Trump is also facing a fierce backlash from comments he made last night when he attacked Joe Biden with vulgarity.
And he said, we will stop MAGA. MAGA, we're going to... I said, listen, you stupid...
And then he suggested his old Republican nemesis Liz Cheney should be put in the line of fire.
She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face.
That's convenient. No mention about sitting in Washington and how easy it is to send out troops into the line of fire. Yeah, let's leave it there. That's enough of that. Let's just have a look at One News. Although, just in that 3 News coverage, even when Trump's explaining his comments at a restaurant later on, the reporter deliberately speaks over what he's saying so that he doesn't get the chance to explain it. Now, let's watch One News's coverage with Jack Tame. Again, watch when they cut the coverage.
Dearborn, Michigan today, Donald Trump met with his Arab American supporters.
We look to a Trump presidency with hope, envisioning a time where peace flourishes, particularly in Lebanon and Palestine.
But while Trump is promising peace and stability in the Middle East, he's taking aim at former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney.
She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face.
As a Congresswoman, Liz Cheney voted to impeach Donald Trump.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, One News and 3 News didn't cover the homophobic, bigoted statements of Tim Walz against Elon Musk in their coverage. Have a listen to this. I mean, there should be outrage on behalf of the LGBTQIA++ groups.
So now, I suppose it wasn't too bad, thinking back to that economy. If you're a billionaire, Elon Musk, for example, say, that gay guy, Michigan knows that word.
Oh, that gay guy. Wow, that's a homophobic slur. Where's the? That's a hate crime, isn't it? Now, look, just in terms of what Trump had said about Liz Cheney, even the Liberal commentator Bill Maher said that the media coverage was a hoax. The coverage you watched in New Zealand was a hoax. Bill Maher says he was saying something that, by the way, sounds like what hippies used to say about not sending people to die. Anti-war people. Have a watch.
To the headline that Trump had called for a firing squad for Liz Cheney. And this is what I really don't like about the media. No, he didn't. He did not. You don't have to move me to not like Donald Trump.
He says more so many shitty things. Why do you have to do that?
And by the way, if Pete don't realize it, well, here's what he said. He's criticizing her for being a war hawk. I mean, she is Dick Cheney's daughter. He said, she's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay. Let's see how she feels about it. You know, they're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, oh, gee, we'll send tens of thousands of troops right into the mouth of the enemy. Now, of course, he expresses himself horribly. He has to add she's a stupid person because he's a moron.
Well, Trump knows what it's really like from Vietnam.
So there we go. Bit of context. That's even from people who don't really like Trump. So Trump's talking about how DC politicians send kids off to the war from their comfortable offices while never putting themselves in those war zones. And the media tells you that Trump says he wants to place Liz Cheney in front of a firing squad. Now, also on Saturday night, TVNZ butchered a piece on the abortion debate. Reporter Logan Church was keen to push the abortion narrative in the state of Georgia, which is a real marginal seat, and it could tip the presidential result. But according to Kamala Harris and the pro-abortion mainstream media, women are dying in the US because pro-life laws don't allow abortion on demand. And they've jumped on 2 tragic cases of 2 women who died in Georgia, which is where Logan Church from TVNZ was. Now, Georgia's heartbeat law says that if you can detect the heartbeat of an unborn child, you can't kill it, which, sounds very reasonable. But here's what the media, including Logan Church and TVNZ, won't tell you about these two sad cases. These women died after attempting chemical or so-called medication abortions, as we have here in New Zealand. One woman died of sepsis because the chemical abortion failed, and the other died as a result of complications from the medical abortion. An autopsy report in the second case also revealed that the woman had a lethal combination of painkillers, including the dangerous opioid fentanyl, in her system. But that didn't stop the abortion lobby and the media blaming, and TVNZ and Logan Church blaming Trump. Now, Sunday morning on TVNZ's Q&A, there was a feature on the US election, and here was the intro to the feature interview, and the interview was entitled, US Faces Chaos If Trump Wins Second Term. Here's the intro.
Republican staffer for George W. Bush and staff writer at The Atlantic magazine, David Frum is a celebrated observer and analyst of national politics and global affairs. We sat down in his office and I asked him to assess the state of the race.
Now, what they didn't tell you, apart from a minor comment well into the interview, is that this guy has always opposed Trump. He's described as a celebrated observer, but he's also founding member of the Never Trump lobby group, author of Trumpocracy, the Corruption of the American Republic. He voted for Hillary in 2016, even though he worked for the Republicans previously. And his magazine, The Atlantic, endorsed Biden in 2020. I don't know. I sort of think that in an intro, you should be told that information, but you weren't. Why not? One more example, probably the worst actually of the whole weekend. Last night, Sunday night, poor wee 3 News newsreader Laura Tupou is absolutely dripping with unprofessionalism, sarcasm and condescension as she slams Trump for his rhetoric, but then congratulates Kamala for returning as good as she got. This is probably the worst introduction I've ever seen on a major news bulletin.
No mai haere mai ma loilele. Welcome to 3 News. Donald Trump's rhetoric ramped up another notch today, if that were possible. He described his Democratic opponent, Kamala Harris, as a weak and foolish woman and said voters should not put her in the White House because she will, and I will quote, get overwhelmed, melt down, and millions of people will die, perhaps. At least he added the perhaps. And for her part, Kamala Harris gave as good as she got. Leighton Hakel reports.
Oi. Whew. Now, by the way, the millions dead, he was referring to the potential for wars and how Trump argues he would have prevented the Russian and Ukraine war and possibly the Middle East one as well. That's his claim. That's where the millions comes in. And he does say perhaps. Look, whatever you think of Trump, you at least deserve the full story in context and without being deliberately misled or told what to think. That goes for any political leader and any political issue. Trump derangement syndrome is a mental condition in which a person has been driven effectively insane due to their dislike of Donald Trump, to the point at which they will abandon all logic and reason. That sums up the entire New Zealand news media at the moment. And if they're propagandising coverage of the US election, you can be sure they're doing it to many other issues as well. In fact, we've already proven that. We deserve better from the news media, but I suspect we're not going to get it. Trust and media are 2 words that should never be used in the same sentence. And it's very sad that we've got to that point.